This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmur's Day, January 20th, 2025. On the show today, news, listener questions, and a new touring plan that completes all the Animal Kingdom rides in under 2 hours. Then in our main segment, Jim starts on the history and future of Disney's Reflections, a Lakeside Lodge. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says needlepoint tells people you'll stab something 1,000 times and display the results in your living room. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Len. And again, the manly art of needlepoint. And by the way, I say that sincerely because me, personally, I associate needlepoint with defensive tackle Rosie Greer.
Rosie Greer! Exactly.
There we go. Who, by the way, after a storied career with the New York Giants and the LA Rams back in the 1960s, went on to write a book about what he did during his free time off of the football field, which was knitting, crocheting, macrame, and needlepoint. And that volume, Rosie Greer's Needlepoint for Men, was published by Walker and Company some 52 years ago this month, January 1972. That said, Len, 1972, that was also the year that Rosie appeared in the blaxploitation movie, The Thing with Two Heads. You ever see this? He shares a body with Academy Award winner Ray Milland.
It's the buddy comedy we didn't know we needed.
There we go. That kind of a mixed bag, 1972. But by the way, Rosie, still with us. 92 years old, July of last year, and makes his home now down in San Diego. And I have to say, I just picture him with some amazing throw pillows there with him on the couch. Just saying.
Oh, just fantastic. Yeah, you know, he's the hit in his retirement home. Fantastic. All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including CD Lionel Trains, Shelley Wilson, Frank Lamson, Jonathan Pop, Sarah Miarelli, and Donna Seagrave. Jim, these are the executives working on Disney's newest restaurant franchise, Pandora Wild Wings, a Na'vi-themed sports bar. They say franchisees can expect one Ikran wing to serve everyone in the store, keeping the menu simple and lowering operating costs. And that converting America's unused steel plants to air fryers is the last cooking hurdle to overcome. True story. I spent a lot of time in the Animal Kingdom over the last week.
I love this business plan. My one concern is, how do you get everybody at the table to agree on the dipping sauce?
Exactly.
Yeah, just saying. So.
On to the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is sponsored by DVC Rental Store. Have you ever dreamed about staying in deluxe accommodations at Disney for a fraction of the cost? If so, the DVC Rental Store connects guests with incredible savings on Disney Vacation Club resorts. Whether you're a DVC member looking to rent your points, or a guest who's looking to stay in style, the DVC Rental Store offers a seamless process for both. And don't forget, they also offer exciting point swaps for unforgettable experiences like cruises and adventures. Check them out at dvcrentalstore.com/Disney Dish. There's a link in the show notes for you guys too. All right, Jim, the news. I was in the Animal Kingdom a lot over the past week, and I noticed that there's a new band called Echo Rhythmics, and it's a drumming band that debuted at Animal Kingdom on, today's Thursday, so Tuesday, I guess. So Laurel and I were walking around the park and happened to see them. It's a drumming act whose instruments are made from recycled material, and the name tags for the three musicians are Reduce, Reuse, and Recycle.
Okay.
Kind of clever.
Very much on brand.
15-minute show, a lot of drumming. There's some xylophone work in there too.
No.
And so Laurel and I were thinking, Jim, and I don't know the answer to this question, but what's the difference between a xylophone and a vibraphone?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know we have listeners that can answer this question.
All right.
So
yeah, we'll do that. All right.
Okay.
Also, as we were walking around, I thought, is there a better fit for a musical act in the animal kingdom than mulch, sweat, and shears. And really, hasn't this entire country been going downhill since Disney got rid of them? Coincidence?
Who can argue with
yeah, really. I'm just saying.
that line of thinking. So.
All right. And the reason I was spending a lot of time in the Animal Kingdom was, Jim, I was testing a new Animal Kingdom touring plan on Wednesday. I think a couple episodes ago, we talked about a new touring plan for Hollywood Studios. And so we're doing new wait time models. I'm going to talk you through what we came up with and why it works. So There we go. So Animal Kingdom opened for early theme park entry at 7:30 in the morning. I got there, Jim, at 6:45. Now you're thinking to yourself, at 6:45 in the morning, are the toll booths at the Animal Kingdom even open? But they open at 6:30, Jim.
Okay.
Not only was it dark, the moon was still out. It was that. And you'd think, okay, so you get there at 6:30. How many people can be in line ahead of you at the Animal Kingdom? And there were hundreds of people already ahead of me in line.
Oh, really? Okay.
Also, Animal Kingdom on Wednesday still had the Christmas lights and Christmas music up. So we were all being festooned with Christmas songs while we waited in line. It was kind of surreal. Anyway.
Okay.
So a couple hundred people in line ahead of me, but with a couple of lucky breaks, some fast walking, and knowing how the park opens, I managed to be the 8th person in line for Flight of Passage. And so the new models say you should go to Flight of Passage first, and then Na'vi River Journey. And by the way, when I was testing this, I was side by side testing with a cast member who works in the Animal Kingdom, who really understands the park very well. And so what I did is I gave them a list of attractions that I was going to visit, and I said, visit them in any order you want. And we both agreed that Flight of Passage and Na'vi River Journey would be the first two. So we both did those two together. Okay. So did those. So 8th person on Flight of Passage. I think it was like the 20th person on Na'vi River Journey. It just was not. I literally walked on. There was no one ahead of me. Now here's the interesting thing. So once you come out of Pandora, you could go to, it was like right at 8 o'clock. So you could go to Kilimanjaro Safaris, just make a left, go to Kilimanjaro Safaris, get that out of the way. Or you could go right and go to Dinosaur in Dinoland, right? But the models said to go meet Mickey and Minnie at Adventure's Outpost. And so I did that. And I included a picture where I met Mickey and Minnie on Wednesday. So a couple of interesting things. I was the first one there. To meet Mickey and Minnie, and I went to high five Mickey, and I did, and then I hugged Mickey, and I turned around for a photo, and I noticed Minnie was there waiting for me to hug her, and she had outstretched arms, and I was like, oh, I missed that, and then she turned away like she pretended to walk out the door, and I was like, no, I love you too, I just didn't see you, I haven't had my coffee and everything. So they were like super animated and everything. It was really fun. And then at the end, we gave each other, instead of high fives, high fours, because that's how many fingers we have. And I was on my way. But here's the thing. So meeting Mickey and Minnie as your third thing to do is actually the thing that the models identified that most people would overlook. So I finished 30 minutes before my person who works at the Animal Kingdom, and I'll tell you why that's impressive in a second. But the critical thing here is, if you want to meet Mickey and Minnie, do it right after Pandora, because that's kind of like the thing that the models uncovered that most people wouldn't think of. Anyway, I did Dinosaur, walked onto that. Expedition Everest had like a 2-minute wait. Kilimanjaro Safaris was, I think, the longest wait I had. No, 5 minutes. No, second longest. Flight of Passage didn't actually open on time. We waited 10 minutes there.
Okay.
Safaris was the last thing I did because Kali River Rapids was closed, and it's tough to be a bug is really a show, not a ride. Anyway, guess how long it took to complete all of those rides, Jim?
God, I mean, I just with the doubling back to Adventure Outpost, and then from the schlep from Na'vi River to Adventure to Dinosaur. This is 2 hours? 3? What?
So, park opened at 7:30. I was done with all the rides by 9:15. Like, I was off of Kilimanjaro Safaris by 9:15. So, an hour and 45 minutes for all the rides. I actually spent more time in pre-shows than I did in lines.
Okay.
And so this was the thing I was thinking. Like, I was home by 10.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So even if it took another 4 hours to see, like, It's Tough to Be a Bug, walk the 3 nature trails, see Lion King, Feather Friends in Flight, and, the Finding Nemo shows, I would have been done with the park and lunch by like 1:30.
Wow.
So 6 hours?
Okay.
Here's my question for you. This is what I was thinking of as going through the park. What is the plan for keeping people in the animal kingdom while this construction work is going on through 2027? Like and granted, it was a crowd level 2 day. It was slow and I did get there early, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, if you can complete the entire park in 6 hours, what do you do?
I have heard that you were mentioning when you walked in, holiday lights were still up, holiday music. I'm assuming that the Polar Pals, those wonderful puppets they have for the holiday season, those were nowhere in sight by this point.
I didn't see them, and if they were there, I was done so early that the live entertainment hadn't even started. So I finished at 9:15. I think the first show of the day wasn't for another hour and 15 minutes. And that would have given me time to go through the nature trails, yeah.
Okay, well, it turns out that the Polar Pals have been such a great guest satisfier. Now, mind you, again, it's been a holiday, strictly holiday entertainment up until this point, but in much the same way that once upon a time, Epcot only had one festival, Flower and Garden. Evidently, there have been some discussions about, okay, what else, what other characters? We have this team of puppeteers now who are great at working with these things, and it's been a great guest satisfier. People like interacting with these things, and we're far enough post-pandemic that, yes, we're still taking these things backstage and swabbing them down before we bring them out again. But, but yeah, that evidently there have been some discussion about, okay, what do we do? Could we, for example, I guess that they looked closely at Mufasa, the new photorealistic Lion King prequel that's out in theaters. Also, evidently, there's been a close look at Lilo and Stitch, the live action that's coming out. But they're looking for a property that they potentially could do in that space. And again, with the idea of just slow folks down, give them some entertainment before they continue on to the park.
I mean, that's what I think they can do in the short term is live entertainment. But even then, it has to be compelling enough that people would stay past lunchtime. Yeah, and that's going to be the tricky part there. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think it's lower on Disney's priority list than say the Magic Kingdom. Things to improve the Magic Kingdom, things to improve Epcot, things to improve the studios. But
true.
I mean, you can finish this park in 6 hours now. The other interesting thing that I want to test is this: if the park is open till 6, can I arrive at 1 or 2 and still do everything? Because the day before we were at the Animal Kingdom on Tuesday when we saw the new musical act, there were so many people leaving the park as we were going in the early afternoon that I thought that I thought we should go around and look at all the wait times. And Flight of Passage at like 3:00 on a Tuesday had a 35-minute wait time, but I'm convinced it was not more than 15 minutes of actual wait there. Actually, I was talking to a cast member who said I was like, hey, this 35-minute wait, this is fantastic. And they're like, oh yeah, but we just had somebody up here who said, is the park always this crowded? I'm like, this is the best day you're ever going to see at this park in terms of crowds. Yeah.
That's fascinating though. Cause remember once upon a time we've talked with Shul about this, that there was the notion that back in the day when they were initially designing the studio, it was about, that's a half-day park. And the idea is you get a half-day park there, you get a half-day at the water park, you add an evening at Downtown Disney or Pleasure Island, and you've managed to tack another day and a half onto somebody's vacation. But
it's funny that you mentioned water parks because it's cold here this week in Florida. It's the highs are only in the mid 60s, Jim, which is frigid, right? The iguanas are falling out of the trees, right?
Okay.
But here's something interesting because Disney had to close. I forget which water park is open right now. I think it's Blizzard Beach. Had to close it for cold weather. one day this week. And you know how Disney says that there's no refunds, no exchanges on that new water park promo for 2025?
Mm-hmm.
If they close the water park, and they did, you actually get a water park ticket that's good for the next 3 days of your trip, which gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Okay. All right. I like that they recognize the special circumstances. So
yeah,
okay,
and not only
cool.
I mean that not only is that a good make good, but it gives you 3 days to make it up. So if you're going to do 2 days, hitting the parks really really early, your third day might be we'll just go to a water park and relax. So that's definitely a good thing that Disney's doing there. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to listener questions. Jim, the first one is from our own Drew Taylor, who asks, Drew.
I know that guy.
I know, exactly. And Drew's question is this: how popular is Tiana's Bayou Adventure as compared to Splash Mountain? All right, so I pulled Unofficial Guide and Touring Plans surveys. We've got hundreds of thousands of these for the Magic Kingdom. And both Splash Mountain and Tiana's are in the very top tier of highest rated Magic Kingdom attractions. So Splash Mountain, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Tiana's are all within hundredths of a point of each other. It's basically, the same, along with Big Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain. So those are all beloved by almost every age group. Almost exactly the same. And the interesting thing there is that when Tiana's first opened, it was not rated as highly as Splash Mountain, which means that over time it should become slightly more popular because the recent surveys are much more positive.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if I mentioned Tron is in the top tier along with Space Mountain there too. But then the second tier would be Magic Kingdom classics like Pirates, Haunted Mansion. The TTA is actually up there along with Buzz Lightyear and the Railroad.
Wow.
You know what? They're all good for their own reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You climb in the TTA and you get to sit and relax and enjoy the view. So.
Exactly. So that's the answer. It is exactly as popular as Splash Mountain, might be slightly more popular over time. The next email is from Laura, who says, I wanted to offer another perspective on the engineering spots in Smuggler's Run, which you talked about a couple of episodes ago. For people with motion sickness, being in the back with a job that doesn't require looking at the screen is a great thing. When I travel with my family of 4, I always slide into those back seats. People love that I'm not fighting for the pilot's seat. And if this wasn't available, I wouldn't be able to ride it. Just my 2 cents. So that's a great point.
That is. I had not thought of that. Okay.
So that's interesting because when I would think that motion sickness would be where you're moving around, but you aren't looking at the screen. But apparently looking at the screen can also cause motion sickness. Oh, that's a good point. Okay.
Okay.
All right. A question from Brent Muir from Australia, who says, my Disneyland merchandise idea is to replace the train tracks around Disneyland by selling off the old steel rails. Cut the actual rail every 1/3 of an inch and mount it on a picture frame with a photo of one of the Disneyland trains and a small plaque. Number them, of course. Do you think these would sell at $60? If so, that'd be worth about $9 million. So you know how I love a math question, Jim.
Okay.
All right. So the Disneyland Railroad is around 1.2 miles long. Doing the math, that's 6,332 feet, or roughly 76,000 inches. I don't know what that is in the metric system because I don't understand the metric system. But let's say we laser cut the pieces to minimize waste, and that each 1/3 of an inch cut takes 3/8 of an inch with that waste. That gives us just over 202,000 pieces in 6,332 feet. At $60 a pop, that's $12 million, which is actually pretty close to Brent's $9 million estimate, considering he's probably most familiar with the metric system. But Jim, here is the thing, and Brent, this is the catch. There are 2 sides to a railroad track. There are 2 tracks.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So you really have 400,000 pieces. So selling them all would be $24 million. I'm just saying, you need to refinance the railroad, Jim.
Okay. I hate to say this, but this also reminds me of, what was it? 1996, 1997, when the Main Street Electrical Parade glowed away forever. And they turned around, and I wanted to say this is for the Children's Hospital of Orange County, but they sold off individual light bulbs. And
I remember this, yeah.
Yep. And I want to say it was kind of around the same price point, and only later somebody pointed out that they're light bulbs. Yes, we said
they're buying them from General Electric. They're putting them in a plaque. So a moving van from General Electric pulls up at one end. They put them in the plaque. They ship them out on the other end. Yeah, I get it.
There you go.
It sounds like something
But again,
out of
for
Goodfellas.
charity, how can you complain? So,
exactly.
Okay.
And I mentioned this too because over the weekend, Laurel and I were on Tom Sawyer Island. And Jim, the next time you and Jim Schuller are here, we really need to do a video where we go through the caves because those are really awesome. But
They are.
I was thinking to myself, like, where is the windmill from Tom Sawyer Island going to go? Where is the mill itself? Go the water wheel. Where's that going? Where are the seats from Aunt Polly's going? Are they all going to end up at Cass Connection?
Oh, okay. That sounds like we need to make a trip backstage.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. All right. Last question is from Ryan, who wrote in with this. Have any of the Avatar characters ever shown up in a nighttime show or fireworks? After you and Jim did a deep dive on Disney fireworks last summer, I started watching a lot of YouTube videos of the nighttime shows, and at some point I realized that I never saw a Na'vi. I get that it's not a Disney-originated franchise, but it's $2 billion movies, plus an increasing presence in the parks. Disney's Animal Kingdom is out, because fireworks, but wouldn't it fit in World of Color or the Disney Springs drone show about flying things? I'm just wondering if I'm missing some blue faces in the fireworks. All right, so Jim, I actually sent you this email to ask whether a third-party franchise that is not owned by Disney has ever appeared in a fireworks show or nighttime spectacular, and apparently the answer is yes.
Here we go. Okay,
but it's a small part. So as part of Disneyland's 2018 Pixar Fest celebration, Disney ran the Together Forever, a Pixar Nighttime Spectacular from April through September of 2018, and then they brought it back in 2024. And Ryan, in that, Mattel's Barbie character had two brief cameos. One was in a blooper reel from Toy Story 2, and that ran from April through June, I think. And then that was later replaced with other sequences, including one with the voice of tour guide Barbie. And I put a link to the Together Forever 2018 show from YouTube in the show notes. You guys should listen to it. But Jim, other than Barbie, has there ever been another third-party character besides Toy Story 2? Like, I can't think of anything.
Disney again. This is about Disney legal. I mean, I'm sure there have been things that the Imagineers or Entertainment have pitched, right. And again, you get it to the guys who sit there with ties and spreadsheets. It's like, no, can't do it. No, right. It's a funny idea, but no.
Yeah, I mean, I originally thought of Barbie, like when you and I were emailing, and then I thought, was the Care Bears the other thing that Disney did, and then the Power Rangers. And we have, like, from Roger Rabbit, Roger Rabbit film, we have the cooperation with other studios. But I know, Jim, that was 30 years ago. All of these things were 30 years. It was a different time, right?
No, absolutely. And it's worth noting that if you actually get to Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin at both, of course, Tokyo and Mickey's Toontown out in California, we're back to strictly just Disney-owned or what Amblin agreed to let them use in the attraction.
Yeah.
None of the other characters that made the original film from '88 so much fun.
It was funny because when we were watching the new drumming show at Animal Kingdom, I think they launched with Bare Necessities. And I was like, oh, we're going through the Disney song canon again, aren't we? We're not doing we're not doing any non-Disney songs. All right, fair. That keeps the cost down. I get it.
It does.
All right, so Jim, if you can think of anything other than Barbie, let me know. We'll go back and search for the entertainment.
Okay.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim begins the history of Reflections, a Disney Lakeside Lodge. We'll be right back.
All right, so you look in the mirror these days and you see way too much forehead. I know the feeling, brother. You've lost your hair. But did you know you can find those follicles again with Hims Hair Loss Solutions? Seriously, folks, with Hims, you get access to a range of hair loss treatments that work. With doctor-trusted options and clinically proven ingredients, you can regrow your hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Better yet, you don't even need insurance to get started, and you can do everything from the comfort of your own home. Start your free online visit today with hims.com/dish. That's HIMS.com/dish for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/dish. Results vary. Based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride, prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
And we're back. All right, Jim, I noticed that as I was walking through Frontierland that there are giant construction cranes all around Walt Disney World these days.
That there are. And by the way, when we say cranes, the cranes are back. It makes me think of the Swallows returning to Capistrano, which, by the way, in spite of all the wildfires and the devastation of what's going on out there, the Swallow Day Parade and the Mercado Street Fair in Orange County still on track, folks. That is supposed to happen March 22nd of this year at the historic Spanish Mission there in Orange County of San Juan Capistrano. Len, have you ever done that? Visited the mission when you were down there?
No, I haven't. But isn't like the Swallows returning to Capistrano? Is that a Bugs Bunny joke? Like, where do I know that from?
There was a hit song from, I want to say, the 40s. In fact, as I was researching this earlier this morning, I found the Pat Boone version. But yeah, the Swallows, these itty bitty birds they winter in Goya, Argentina, and then make the 7,500-mile trip up to San Juan Capistrano. And Len, I say this sincerely, given the amount of time that you spend on planes traveling between New York and Orlando and California and the like. And do you think they have to catch a connecting flight in Hartsfield Jackson outside of Atlanta?
They're either going through Atlanta or DFW, one or the other.
There we go. There we go. Okay, so anyway, but again, as Len mentioned, with the crane script returning to the Walt Disney World, again, as Len mentioned, there's a big one looming over Tom Sawyer's Island and the Rivers of America. There are the cranes that will be moving in shortly to the space formerly occupied by Chester and Hester's Dinorama over at Animal Kingdom. And then there were the cranes that have been working for the past month or so along the southernmost shore of Bay Lake. And got to say, it's that last set of construction cranes that really interests Mr. Testa and myself. Because I think, as we previously talked about this project, the Lakeside Lodge that Disney Vacation Club has been planning and is now building on the former site of Fort Wilderness's River Country Water Park, this got tabled for a time.
Everyone thought it was dead, but we actually said on a show last year at this time that it wasn't dead.
Yeah, but even so, it was fascinating. I mean, just to run people through the timeline quick, project was initially announced in October of 2018. It was going to be the 16th DVC at that time, and but interesting thing, it was a mix of elements. It was going to be a deluxe hotel and a vacation club property. In fact, 900 rooms and then club villas.
Villas, yeah.
Yeah. And we found out a month after that that there was a name for this place, the Reflections, a Disney Lakeside Lodge. That info got revealed on November 17th of that year, 2018, by Bob Chapek, who then was just the chairman of Disney Parks and Experiences. He was on stage at a Destination D event, and site prep continued through early 2020, and then, of course, the world stopped because of the pandemic. And then this was where it got curious, Len. On numerous official Disney websites, all mentions of Reflections at Disney Lakeside Lodge were removed, and even the digital press releases that had previously provided details on the resort were pulled down.
Down the memory hole, Jim. Down the memory hole.
Yeah, and then in March of 2022, we suddenly began hearing that the Spirit of Aloha dinner show, which of course had shut down back in March of 2020 during the pandemic, we now found out that this facility, which remember was located along the waterfront on Seven Seas Lagoon, between the Polynesian Village and the Wedding Pavilion, would be flattened for an entirely different Lakeside project. And Len just recently spent some time at this. Yep. Well, it opened just last month on December 17th, right? The Island Tower at the Disney Polynesian Villas and Bungalows.
Yep. Fantastic. I stayed there opening night and then actually going back in March. So I already have another reservation ready.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'd love to hear what has changed over those 3 months. But anyway, for me, this episode, the Lakeside Lodge getting announced, putting placed on hold, the Island Tower being sort of turbocharged, and again, that got open. That's what is it? 2.5 years, Len, for March of 2020. Yeah, that's impressive.
I think you and I talked about this on a recent show. It's that when Disney needs to build something that is revenue generating like DVC, that is done on a different timeline than it's not on the Tron timeline. Let's put it that way.
No, not at all. I mean, it's like there's an accelerator and it gets pressed to the floor.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this is that there's a pattern here, folks, that the company has followed for 60 years. And in fact, what's interesting, the company has been trying to develop this particular stretch of Bay Lake, that chunk of property along the southernmost shore, since the mid-1960s. In fact, there's a very famous story about how Walt was looking at the window of the Disney corporate jet when they were doing that flyover in November of 1963. It looks out at Raz Island or Riles Island. Again, that's the name of the island in the middle of Bay Lake, which would at some point become Treasure Island and then Discovery Island. Evidently, Walt sees the island, see how close it is to the shore of Bay Lake, and reportedly says, yep, that's it. This is the piece of property we need to buy. But what fascinates me, Len, is when push comes to shove, and we're now talking about two global events that Disney just could not control, were the energy crisis in the 1970s and then the pandemic just 5 years ago. The Walt Disney Company, in financially challenging times, would shy away from doing something with the southernmost shore of Bay Lake. And again, opt to go with something that they thought was safer, which in this case was a DVC that was located close to the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, see, you mentioned that, and a DVC on the Magic Kingdom monorail loop is the closest thing to a no-brainer construction project that this company has.
No, that prints money.
Yeah.
People want to stay. I mean, you saw that yourself.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, it's a beautifully designed facility, but at the same time, the old adage about real estate: location.
Yeah. When we did our show on the Island Tower, I got an email from our friend Shannon Ford, who said, I think this is, and Shannon said, this is a beautiful hotel, but you cannot rent points here to save your life. Like everything is completely booked 11 months out. And so that's the key there. It is, I think it's one of the best things, but Jim, I mean, if you look at the development stuff, and we've talked about this on previous shows, you look at the development map, the land map for what can be used around the Magic Kingdom, and that area between the TTC and the Contemporary is now available, but also the stuff to the west of Adventureland, still open too. So I think that's like their ace up their sleeve. Like if we ever needed some desperation money, right? Like we build a hotel there. Anyway, go ahead. All right.
Well, now again, if we pivot back to Fort Wilderness, and again, campground built along the southernmost shore of Bay Lake, it's worth noting that was, there's no polite way of saying this, it was slapped together. They didn't even begin construction of Fort Wilderness's first 200 campsites till January 71. And then
plenty of time. Jim, it says wilderness right in the name. How much do you need to do?
Well, but this is what fascinates me. Okay, if you go back to the original Walt Disney World site plan, and this is the one, everybody knows from the, Walt Disney standing in front of the map, and, at this point, I'm 1 mile tall. But if you actually look at that map, the campgrounds and a set of motels, those are actually built down by I-4 and 192. In fact, they were part of the I believe they called it the entrance plaza, or the entrance complex. And the idea was that each morning, people who were staying at the campground would get up, make their way to the transportation hub, and grab a monorail. And then they could either go to Epcot, the city, or they could go up to the resort area where they could explore the on-site hotels, shop at the stores there, or dine in the restaurants, or continue on to the Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
But after Walt dies in December of 66, that version of the Walt Disney World site plan died with him. And campgrounds effectively fall off the table. It's not till 4 years later when Dick Nunis is sent down to Florida. And by the way, we talked about this on the show. His marching orders were do whatever you have to get that place open by 71. And evidently, one of Nunis's first on-site meetings, he turns to the construction team and says, "So what's going on with the campground?" And they're like, "What campground?"
You can see them flipping through the pages in the project plan going, campground. Nope, not in the index. Don't see it.
Hang on. Is that with a K or a C?
Exactly, yeah.
Now, speaking of Ks, so Dick gets on the phone to Keith Cambeck, a longtime Disneyland employee that Dick had worked with out west. And the thing is, Keith has a degree in outdoor recreation. So he gets on the phone. And so Nunis tells Cambeck, get on a plane. I need you in Florida yesterday.
Bring your sleeping bag and nothing else.
There we go. You're going to build a campground. And but here's the part of the story that I've only just recently learned about, Lennon. It adds such a wonderful color to the history of Fort Wilderness. And remember, original version of where the campground was supposed to go, down by I-4 and 192. Okay. But here's the thing. There was absolutely no money in the Walt Disney World budget for a campground. So Nunis basically told Cambeck, upon his arrival in Florida, you're going to have to scavenge supplies. So
here's an axe. Good luck.
But here's the part of the story I love. So this is why Fort Wilderness winds up where it is. It was the site was chosen because it was actually close enough to the construction sites of the Contemporary, the Poly, and the Magic Kingdom that when the construction workers went home at 5, Keith and his team, which, by the way, Len, eventually became known as Cambeck's Raiders, could then drive over to the construction site. And especially once daylight savings time kicked in 1971, that's by the way, late April, they could then requisition, which was a very polite way of quickly throw supplies in the back of your pickup truck and drive off, stuff from these work sites. But the other part of it that I hadn't put together was that the Fort Wilderness work site was then put far enough back in the woods that when the construction workers showed up the next day and it's like, oh, where's my jackhammer? Where's that pile of 2x4s? Those bastards. And it actually discouraged people from driving over. There was no, in fact, that supposedly was one of the very last things built at Fort Wilderness was the direct road in.
So Keith goes out, he buys a bunch of beware of bear signs.
There we go.
Right? There's no road.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah, why don't you guys go walk over there? Why don't you guys walk that mile through the woods?
There we go.
Watch out for the bears and the alligators and go see if your stuff is over there. And people are like, you know what? We'll buy more. That's fine.
There we go. So, but anyway, back to Keith. He does the best he can. But even so, just given the time constraint, he's not able to get Fort Wilderness open for October 1st. It's the first 200 campsites aren't open till November 19th. That's 7 weeks after the rest of the resort opens. And by the way, Len, it would have cost you a whole $11 a night to stay at Fort Wilderness then.
Really? $11 for camping?
$11. Now, mind you, it's a hit right out of the box.
Oh, sure.
In fact, place is booked solid. And Cambeck, who now that it's actually making money, has a budget. And he's told, okay, we need an additional 300 campsites. Go, with the idea that this is eventually going to be a 600-acre outdoor recreation complex. And meanwhile, the Disney number guys immediately get to work and I find some amazing stats that, for example, on average, Len, on every campsite at Fort Wilderness, there are 5.2 people staying in each site.
Oh, that's got to be way more than at the hotels.
Oh, no, that's it exactly. And now, mind you, they're not spending as much as the folks of the Contemporary and the Poly, but that's largely because in late 71, early 72, there's nothing there. There are no stores. There's no restaurants.
Really? It's just a camp. So there's no there's no facilities? Their idea of facilities at that point is like, that looks like just enough space to put up a badminton net between those two trees, all right? And the volleyball net, move the cottonmouth and put up the volleyball net. I mentioned this because on the Jim Hill Media website, there's a map from 71 that seems to show a remarkable number of amenities, like a marina that I'm guessing did not exist at the time. It's an aspirational diagram, not a map.
There we go. Now, what's interesting is Disney had to get actually pretty creative about addressing these needs. So, for example, if you talk with folks who went to Fort Wilderness in the early days, they talk with great fondness of the flatbed truck that used to roll through the different campsites that was basically a rolling grocery store. I mean, it would pull into the site and like,
it didn't even have a store back then?
They did not have a store, but they did have this truck. It's like, what do you need? You need bread? You milk? You want eggs? We got
like
ice.
A FEMA truck. They're throwing Wonder Bread off the sides.
But this was the fun of staying at Fort Wilderness.
The National Guard is airdropping s'mores with little parachutes on them. Rejoice, campers, rejoice. Go ahead.
If we jump ahead a year and 2 months, by the way, this info comes from the Disney Annual Report that was published November 30th, 1972, and talking about what's going on with Project Florida. And they say, look, attendance patterns and public demand has made it imperative that the company move forward as rapidly as is prudent to build additional theme park attractions, accommodations, restaurants, shops, transportation, and recreation areas. And over the past year, an orderly program of development was mapped out, which stretches into 1975 and beyond. And all right, Len, it's that 1975 and beyond that's crucial because, remember, America's bicentennial coming up in 1976, and Disney's own research suggested that would be the year that many Americans, as part of the country's year-long celebration of its 200th birthday, time to hop in the car and either go to Walt Disney World or out to Disneyland. So imperative, okay, we need to be investing aggressively to be ready for that moment. But at the same time, here's Fort Wilderness. They've got those 300 campsites coming online. But now it's like, well, all right, but we have worked that out. The 5.2 people in 300 additional campsites. How are we getting these people around?
Right. Now transportation becomes an issue.
There we go. So, again, this is from that annual report from November of 72. Early in 1973, a narrow gauge steam railroad with Victorian-style open air cabins will begin transporting guests around a 3-mile loop of track between their campground and then their campsites and the campground's reception, recreation, and entertainment areas. And that by next summer, the steam train will also connect with the new Fort Wilderness Stockade and Western Town, where complete dining, shopping, and entertainment facilities are being built in phases.
Okay, so this is November of 72.
There we go.
Summer starts in June, so you've got 8 to maybe 11 months to get 3 miles of train track up and running?
Yeah.
In a swamp in Florida.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
At some point, Len, that will definitely bite Disney in the butt. But we'll get to that.
Right.
But
Okay, sure.
Okay. Meanwhile, you were mentioning just the marina and that sort of thing. So let's head down to the waterfront and look across the way at Riles Island again. The thing Walt looked out the window at, and was the tipping point between should I buy the property or not. The annual report goes on to say that work has been in progress since this summer of 72, on the first phase of development of the picturesque island in Bay Lake. Walkways, little lakes, and waterfalls will soon be available to explorers and picnickers during 1973, and later the island will be fully developed so that children can explore Ben Gunn's Cave, the Benbow Inn, and the wreck of the Hispaniola, which will all be reminiscent of scenes from Walt Disney's classic film Treasure Island. And at this point, want to circle back to that early mention of Fort Wilderness Stockade and the Western Town, which again, part of an expansion of Walt Disney World's campground, supposed to give those 5.2 people staying on each campsite some place to spend money.
Okay.
And this project was actually supposed to be built right where Reflections, a Disney Lakeside Lodge, or whatever they're calling it now, is supposed to be built. And actually the idea was that as guests are exploring the stockade in the Western Town, they could look out across Bay Lake, see Riles Island, and think, ooh, what's that? How do I get over there? I want to explore that.
Something that Disney guests say to this day.
There we go. But anyway, that's the plan. But again, the old cliche, you don't want to make God laugh, make a plan. Because here comes the energy crisis of 1973, and everything that Walt Disney Production already has in the works for the southernmost shore of Bay Lake is suddenly placed on hold. And we'll get to what that was supposed to be, which, by the way, would have included some brand new attractions that were designed by Disney legend Mark Davis in the next installment of the series, which I have to warn folks is looking like a 3-parter.
Oh, that's fantastic, though. I mean, the Wilderness Lodge and Fort Wilderness areas are some of the most highly rated, resorts and lodging in Walt Disney World. So Disney knows it's got to hit there. And again, it's not quite on the Magic Kingdom monorail loop, but it's the next closest thing. Yeah. So that land is still super valuable.
Well, it's so interesting you mentioned the 3-mile steam train that ran through the campground, because it wasn't all that long ago. In fact, we'll give folks some homework to do prior to the next episode of Disney Dish. But if you folks want to go out and research the name Buffalo Junction or Wilderness Junction, what you will see is a complex that stretches from Fort Wilderness along the shore of Bay Lake all the way over to the campground. And in the middle was going to be this frontier town where you could, again, the idea was you could stay over the livery stable or the Five and Dime and get up in the morning and wander around this frontier town. And to get you back and forth between Wilderness Lodge and the campground was going to be a steam train.
It makes complete sense. It's thematically very consistent. I love it.
Yeah, and again, this was the plan in the mid-90s. I want to say I first heard about Buffalo Junction in 94 and wandered down into the woods with friends who worked at the company and saw where the stakes had been hammered in the ground. It was going to happen until it didn't happen.
Well, the railroad track remnants are still there, right? You and I have seen them, right?
Yeah, but again, that's the railroad system for the campground. That to be honest, I think you nailed it in one. they rushed it in. They didn't do the rail bed work that they were supposed to do, and they were dealing sometimes with 2 and 3 derailments a week. They'd get it going a little too fast, and the train would go off the track, and they have to send some burly Disney employees back down there to A, straighten out the piece of track, and B, get the train back going. But and then it's
still a swamp. Yeah,
it's still a swamp.
All right, I'm looking forward to the next episode here. That's great. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our most recent is a video with Imagineer Jim Scholl on the history of Tomorrowland's extraterrestrial alien encounter. It's a good one. On next week's show, I stay at Universal's new Stella Nova Hotel and visit Epcot's Festival of the Arts, and Jim continues the history of Reflections, a Disney Lakeside Lodge. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, whose emo band Jellyfish Riot will perform the SpongeBob SquarePants classics Where's Gary and The Best Day Ever at the 4th Annual Connecticut Sea Music Festival, June 6th through the 9th, 2025, at the Griswold Inn on Main Street in beautiful downtown Essex, Connecticut. While Eric and David are doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.
We are so glad you came. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye now. Bye. Bye-bye. Remember, please discard all candy wrappers and popcorn containers in the nearest trash receptacle. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye. Are they all gone? Is everybody gone? Huh? Good. Oh my gosh, my cheeks are killing me. I'm going to keep trying like this anymore. I am exhausted. I think I need a break. Right? Okay.